So you're still writing?
Yes, I'm still writing. I'm actually working on a play right now. I just finished one and started into rehearsal for another one.
But I know you're a good writer, or else you wouldn't be in Hollywood still doing it. You got to be good.
So I'm still here. I was telling Bill that when I first met you, I had gone into a myasthenia crisis with my illness, and I couldn't walk. And it was the first time I had gone into one. So the doctors, of course, they were like, we can put you in a hospital, but I had already experienced them and their experimentation on me because they didn't know a lot about myasthenia gravis then. And so I heard Dr. Sebi on Gary Bird's show, WLIB, out of New York. And I'm sitting there listening. I just graduated from college, and I could barely get around. My brothers were actually lifting me around, and they'd lift me into the bathroom. I'd bathe, the private parts, and then they would just bathe my arms and, extremities and stuff. And one of my younger brothers would make my green juice, and, I was just fit to be tied. I had to move back in with my mother, and I had been on my own since I graduated from high school, so that was different. So I hear Dr. Sebi on WLIB, and he was sounding so big. And Gary Bird was trying to interject stuff because that's when folk were eating a lot of tofu and and carrot juice was the rave, and he was like, no, and he broke down.
So y'all been angry against me.
He was, and I was like, oh my God. And I'm sitting, and he was so big, his voice was so big come through radio. So I was like, okay, anybody that sounds like that has to know what they're talking about. And so I had my cousin took me up to see Dr. Sebi. My brothers helped me out, put me in a car. And my cousin was like, well, how are we going to get you, in the place? And I was like, okay, we're going to worry about that when we get there. So we get there, and my cousin goes in, and she comes back to the car, and she says, Zadia is a long freaking, she didn't say freaking, she used the F word, flight of steps. She said, trust me. And I was like, it's real long? She was like, it looks like Jacob's ladder. So two of the guys, I think Son and somebody else, came down to the car. They helped me out of the car. They carried me up the steps.
19 steps.
And it's New York, and Brooklyn.
New York.
Steep. They're not, real steep steps. So I get up there, and I'm sitting, and I'm dead weight. So I knew it was a lot on them. So they sit me in a chair, and they said, well, Dr. Sebi stepped out. He'll be right back. So this is what I was telling you in the car. I'm sitting there, and I hear this bike coming up the steps. And then I look, and I'm sitting right next to the, the door. And when I looked, Dr. Sebi said the door, so I was like, and I guess I must have looked a little shocked. And he said, "What are you looking at me like that for, girl?" And I said, "Because you made such a ruckus coming up the stairs, I thought it was a kid coming up bounce. You know how kids bounce up the stairs?" He said, "Oh, you thought it was a kid, and I'm an old goat." And he just laughed at that laugh that he has. And so we laughed. And so they helped me up, and we went back in the room, and we sat and talked, and I, told them about my illness. I have myasthenia gravis, which is a form of, they say, one of the muscular dystrophies. It's like muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis. And I had been diagnosed when I was 15, so I told them the whole story, and we talked for a while. I was on disability at the time, and he would not take any money from me. And what he said to me was that, and traditional, but now I had, in college, African American Studies was one of my majors, along with acting and, directing, because I went to Mason Gross School of Performing Arts at Rutgers University. So he said to me, in Africa, traditionally, when you were sick, your doctor could not make a living off of the misery of another person. And so when you were well, you paid your doctor. And when you were sick, your doctor took care of you. He said, so you're on disability, there's no way that I'm going to take money from you. So he told his workers, whenever I come, make sure she gets whatever it is she needed. So he gives me all of these herbs. He tells me about the Maya and You know, the Maya has these herbs with the highest concentration of iron phosphate. He tells me about the bladder. I mean, he gives me this whole lesson. I'm in there for like 2-3 hours. Never, you know, doctors rush you in and rush you out. So I'm just sitting there, and because I'm a student of life, I'm just soaking up, you know, everything that he said. He's breaking down the carrots and breaking out. He's like, ask me whatever you want. And I was like, okay, let's go back to this carrot thing you said and why we shouldn't. He just broke everything down. So I leave, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot. And so I leave, we go home. I lived in New Jersey, so that's an hour and a half drive. My cousin drives me back. I get back to my mother's house. Two of my younger brothers come out. They help bring me in the house. But now I gotta pee, because when I'm up at his place, they're giving me this tea, I'm drinking this, I'm drinking, you know what I'm saying? So I gotta pee when I get back, right? My younger brother, my mother had a huge 2-story house, 2.5 bathrooms, but my brothers are in the bathrooms and only downstairs, so the only bathroom is upstairs. And I'm like, damn, I gotta pee, but remember I can't walk. But now, and I'm like raving, I'm saying raving, and he's like, okay, but this middle brother, he was one of those people that took off all his clothes when he went in the bathroom to make a out. So I'm like, oh my God, I know he gonna be a while. I know my other younger brother, he gonna be a while, because they're big, 6 foot, even young kids, they were big guys. So I'm like, I really gotta pee. So, but I'm sitting there looking at it, I start taking out my nutritional package. So then I think back on what he said. Okay, this Maya has these, 14 herbs or something like that, the highest concentration of iron phosphate, and he broke down iron phosphate, puts oxygen in your cells and gives you energy and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to see how good this stuff is. So I take, the directions say 2 tablespoons. So my mother, I asked her to give me a tablespoon. She gives me I take 2 tablespoons, and I really got to pee. And you know when it gets to that point where you know that. So I'm sitting there doing this and that. So I get to the steps at my mother's house, and it's going up, and I get to the steps, and I felt that, oh my God, if I don't go now, I'm peeing on myself. I ran up the steps. I get to the top of the steps, and I'm like, oh shit. Oh, and I look back down the steps, and I had to hold on to the handrail, not because I was dizzy or nothing, but I could not believe it. I just ran up the steps, so I run into the bathroom. I go to the bathroom, wash my hands. I can't wait to get to the telephone that's in the upstairs den, because the upstairs is now, so I'm in the upstairs den. I get over to the phone, and I'm calling, I'm looking in my pocket, and I knew I had the card, his business card. So I pull out the card, and I call, and Annette, Marva answered the phone. And I said, this is Zadia Ife. I was the woman from New Jersey, blood and my senior grad, I was like, and so then I just tell her, because I'm just like, and I took the tablespoon, she's just laughing on the phone. She said, wait, let me get Sebi. Sebi comes to the phone, so I'm telling him, I had to come walk, and I had to pee. And I ran with the bathroom downstairs, so I took the 2 tablespoons, I got the steps, I ran up the steps. And so he just laughed on the phone, and he said that was probably the first time your body had iron. Good iron, that your body could assimilate, and it just went right to your cells, you know what I'm saying, and whoosh, gave me that. And so I was sold it. I was like, okay, whatever he told me to take, I'm just going to. And he said, take this, run around the tree 3 times. You know what I mean? And so he put me on a fast that day. I literally fasted. He said, don't fast again until I tell you to stop. So every month, my cousin would take me back up there to get a nutritional package. And then I got to where I could walk, so I would take the train, but one of my brothers would get on the train with me, or another sister friend. Do you know Ayana Bateman? She's an actress here, brown skin with locks. Yeah. We had an equity theater company. We both went to Mason Gross. She lived in Newark, so my brothers would put me on the train in Asbury Park. The train would stop in Newark. She'd meet me in Newark. She'd get on the train and then go from Newark over to New York, and then she'd be there to walk with me because they were concerned about, my mobility. And so that went on and on and on. But I'm still fasting. I started doing the green juice, and I'm doing the bladderwrack and the sea moss, and I'm just doing everything. And my family is freaking out. The minister of my church now, who the man that baptized me, when my mother is telling him, I hear her on the phone downstairs, she's still fasting, Reverend Matthews, I need you to come over. So he would come over, and I would make my way down the steps, right? Or sometimes he'd come up in the den, you know what I mean, and talk to me. And I still had my old, bedroom at my mother's house, so I'd step in, but I'd come out and come, in the den. Never what every time he would see me, he would be such an awe. He would be like, "You're still fasting? How many days in it?" "Oh, it's day 53. Oh, it's day 63. Oh, it's day 82. Oh, it's day 91. And he would be in such awe. He never prayed for me. He never said, now you could pass that baptized me, right? When I was little. He never said, "Let me pray for you. Let me have," and that. So then when it gets to like about day 100, he said, "Are you still fasting?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, now, your mother is just beside herself. She just wants you to eat something." And he doesn't eat. He can't, not one, and not, there was no ministerial, pastoral, you know what I mean? None of that talk. He couldn't even find the words to say to it. And so one day I said to him, I said, I think it was like day 105, and I said, "Well, Reverend, the Bible says, the scriptures say, where Jesus said when the disciples were trying to heal this man of something that was wrong with him, and they could not heal him. And so when Jesus came, and so they said, "Well, we need you to come." And they were like, "Why couldn't we heal him?" And the scripture said, Jesus said, some things can only come about through prayer and fasting. I said, now that's what the scripture, right? And so that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because maybe this can only come about through prayer and fasting. And I've got to, and then when I started, and then I'm sounding, I could hear Sebi coming through me because I'm breaking down the herbs, and Genesis says, and every herb's bearing fruit for you should be food, and you know what I mean? And I'm quoting, and he's just looking at me like, wow. So, long story short, one day I went to Sebi's, after Sebi's on a Saturday. I would always go on a Saturday. So he said, "So, how you doing? You look good." And then this particular day, my middle brother had went with me. And we got off the subway, that subway, and walking up the subway steps, and I would always travel with 2 quarts of fresh green juice, right? I would have taken all my herbs and stuff before I got there. 2 green, so we walk up the steps, and I drank half a quart of the green juice, and I have them in glass jars. Now we're walking from the subway over to the clinic, and as I'm walking, it just instantly, I just felt, the earth, wind, and fire, call it the serpentine fire going up your spine, going up, they're talking about the chakra, right? And I just felt something like, this just wonderful, like, whatever they say, woosah, whatever that, just going up my spine. And I was like, and so I started picking up my pace. And my brother, he played football on the high school football team. So he was like, I'm walking and I'm going, you know what I mean? And he was like, "Okay, wait, Zah, slow down." He was like, "What?" He was like, "Okay, what happened?" And I was like, "I don't know, but you know what I mean? Something's changed. Something happened." We get up there, I run on up the steps, and he looking like So I get up there, and Sebi said, "So, how you doing?" I said, "I'm really feeling good." And I started explaining how I just drank my juice and this feeling that happened. And he just said, He said, "So, what are you eating?" And I said, "Eating? I'm on 132 days of a fast." He said, "Oh, you still fast?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, "You told me to fast. You told me don't eat until you told me to fast until you told me to stop." He's like, "Oh, okay." So we just had the biggest laugh about that.
Yeah.
And then my energy, but now what we didn't know at the time was when I started back to eating, I didn't realize that it, holistic, and he told me this in the beginning. He said, holistic healing is not like take a pill and you'll be better or you'll have these side effects. Holistic healing is just that, And he said, I can't give you the prescription for what this is because everybody's, body is different, everybody's healing is different. So when I started back to eating, I didn't realize that at the time my cells, I hadn't given myself time enough for my cells to totally change over. And I didn't realize that I could not tolerate any kind of salt at that point. Even the salt that was in, what were we using at that time? We were using not Spike, but what was the...
Sea salt?
Yeah, sea salt. I couldn't even at that point tolerate sea salt. You know what I'm saying? So when I started back to eating and putting a little bit of sea salt, it would just swell my cells up because I should have just continued fasting because I was maybe like a size 6 at the point because the hips and the thighs, that's a family, that's genetics, you know what I'm saying? So they went down a little, but they were still there. So it wasn't like I looked skinny as a rail or anything like that, you know, and I was healthy and glowing and, you know what I'm saying, vibrant. And I you know how when you look back in hindsight, like you just said, you wish that you knew now what you knew, you know what I'm saying, then. Because it's holistic healing, but I was just telling Bill on our way here that I learned so much, you know what I mean? And I still take the tonics, I still, you know what I mean? I still do the bladder and sea moss like every day. Literally, Lynn Connor said to me, she's an actress, and Bill knows, she said to me one time about maybe, like maybe 10 years ago, Lynn said, maybe 7 years ago, she said, so what, Zadia, you don't age? She was like, I've been knowing you since you moved here in 99, and you know, but I know that it's a combination of all of this stuff, because I swear by it, you know what I mean? And I've been taking it since then, and I can tell the difference, you know what I mean, in my body. Like my friends are just amazed when I go home and see my friends at home, and you know, I'm just, you know, when they look at me, and some of them try to say, oh, I know you're out there in Hollywood, you can buy beauty and buy, I know you didn't have a nip or a tuck, and I'm like, no, and I'm 60 years old, you know, and my skin,
What's your age now, Zadia?
60.
60?
Yeah, your skin especially it does glow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I still religiously, I made my shake this morning, my sea moss, my blood